Archives of Prasar Bharati presents the timeless treasure of golden era.
There is nothing particularly distinguishing about 5B Dr. Sarat Banerjee Road, Calcutta. What distinguishes it is the fact that it is occupied by Subhas Mukhopadhyay, the undisputed poet laureate of Bengal. Subhash, who turned 75 recently, has worn many hats in his highly eventful life, that of a communist revolutionary, an ideologue, a mouthpiece cum journalist, a pamphleteer, an author of children's literature, novelist, translator, humanist, and of course, a poet. When Subhash published his first collection of poems, Podatik, the Foot Soldier, at the age of 21, it took the literary world by the proverbial storm for reasons both historical and stylistic. It carried the hallmark of a wizard of word and rhythm. In 1948, Subhash published his second volume of poetry, Agnikon. While this early poetry carried an overload of dogma, it also broke a new path in finding the poetic equivalent of a Marxist perspective. Ideology and dogma dominated Subhash's poetic sensibility until a perceptive change became visible in the 1957 collection Phul Phutak, Let the Flowers Bloom. But if these poems were an early indication of an introspection within the revolution, the thought process in the 1962 Jato Duri Jai, The Further I Go, was surely an agenda for his own poetic emancipation. More significant books and unsought major honors and awards came in at regular intervals. The Sahitya Akademi Award for Jato Duri Jai in 1964, the Soviet Land Nehru Award, the Vishwa Bharati Puruskar, and eventually the prestigious Gyanpith Award in 1991 for outstanding contribution to Indian literature. Born in 1919, Subhas Mukhopadhyay joined the Communist Party of India at the age of 22 and wrote anti-fascist songs which appealed immensely to the masses, who sang them with great fervor and elan on all sorts of occasions. Then began Subhash's travels, which evidently widened his worldview and poetic horizons. In many ways, Jato Duri Jai, and indeed his subsequent output, is a turning point in his poetic journey. It demonstrates both the maturity of the poetic art and the vision of life. Putting on years is not merely growing old. It is an odyssey of the mind and soul. Thought cannot be subservient to any man-made dogmas. It follows its own truths.
মাথার ওপর স্থির পান দেওয়া ইস্পাতের শীতল নিথর নীল, শূন্য দিয়ে জোড়া বাইরে মুখ বধির, মাইলের পর মাইল, মহাকালের লক্ষ্যে ছোঁড়া তীর, হারিয়ে গতিবেগ, জানলা ধরে দাঁড়িয়ে আছে কাছে, পায়ের নিচে মেঘ সুরসুরি দেয়, পক্ষীরাজের শুভ্র পালক, যতদূর যায় চোখ, দেখতে দেখতে অন্তরিক্ষে ঊর্ধ্বমূল কল্পবৃক্ষে স্বচ্ছন্দে পায় ফুল ফোটানোর সব বাসনাই ঠাঁই। জড়ানো পট খুলতে খুলতে ছুটছে স্মৃতি রণ পায়, হঠাৎ দিয়ে সমস্ত ছক উল্টে ক্রমান্বয়ে খামছে খামছে দমদমে প্লেন থামছে। হঠাৎ দিয়ে সমস্ত ছক উল্টে ক্রমান্বয়ে খামছে খামছে দমদমে প্লেন নামছে। আর কিছুক্ষণ, তারপরেই ব্যাস যেমন হয়ে থাকে স্বপ্নের মৌচাকে পড়বে মাটির ঢালা। চলবে তখন উদয় অস্ত, পেছনে হাঁটার, হাত কাটার, মুন্ডু কাটার সে এক প্রস্থ, অন্যরকম খেলা। Ideology didn't play a great role in my poems. I became interested more in the concrete life of the people. I became more interested in images and simple words, spoken speech of the people. And I think though some people said that that phase in which I wrote my poems, they said that those were anti-poetry. But I think that there was more poetry in that phase than in my earlier ones. It was less verbose, more concrete, and full of images. These are more sensuous, you see. You have the smell, you have the sounds, and that smell and sound brings forth the picture behind that. You see, in fact, I like the old Calcutta very much, and I have different smells in different areas. So some smells are from old houses, the walls of old houses, and in some places it is more just like the fish you mentioned, you see, especially in rainy season, you have that smell of ilish, fried ilish, and even in some alleys I found smell of spices, different spices, maybe from kitchens or from godowns. You never know. So, Calcutta is full of sounds, smells, very sensuous city. Besides political events, demonstrations, meetings. But you see, you will find in Calcutta all sorts of people, or people from every part of India doing something, you see. And there are so many sorts of work and so many sorts of living. And I love to roam about in the alleys, seeing all sorts of jobs being done by different people in different languages. Calcutta is fascinating in that way. What fascinates me, that when the people on the streets, ordinary people, say constable or a shop owner, not intellectuals, you see.
The amazing part of Subhas Mukhopadhyay's 5-decade-long poetic journey are the gaps governing his various publications. The unexplained 8-year gap between Podatik and Agnikon, the 5 years that separate Phul Phutak and Jato Duri Jai, the regular 5-year intermission between his 4 novels beginning with Hangras in 1973. He is still struggling with what form to use for his next novel. Economy of expression is an outstanding feature of Subhash's poetry. His publications are as restrained as the lines of his poems. The intervening silences make room for the development of thought, which has continued to grow more profound and philosophical with time. Some of these profound observations on the mysteries of human existence have been contained in other landmark publications like Kal Madhumas, a long autobiographical poem written in 1966, Ek To Pa Chaliye Bhai, a collection of witty observations published in 1979, and Jal Sayat in 1981. Equally significant are his honest rendering into Bengali the poetry of the Bulgarian Nicola Vapatsarov, the Spanish Pablo Neruda, and the Egyptian Nazim Hikmet.
ভানুমতির খেল, সাদার গায়ে ছিটানো কিছু কালি, বিষয় আশয় বলতে সেই বুড়োর আর আছে কি, এই নিয়েই তো খালি যত রাজ্যের চাপান আর উত্তর। ইহকালের কাছে তো সেই বুড়ো পাতেনি হাত, আপনি মিলেছে যায়, তাতেই খুশি হোক না খুদ কুঁড়ো, হোক কিছু তার চোখের জলে ভেজা। ইহকালের ভয় নেই আর বুড়োর, ভয়টা শুধু পরকালের এখন। পড়েছে দাঁত, গেছে চোখের নজর, মানে না দেহ আগের করা শাসক। স্বর্গ নরক পাপ পুণ্য ওসব দেয় না তাকে টান কিংবা ঠেলা, বেঁচে থাকার প্রত্যহই পরক, যা দেখে তাই ভানুমতির খেলা। My poems of younger days were mostly inspired by ideology, and I didn't have much experience of life, so I covered those lack of experience and my enthusiasm for ideology by innovating forms and experimenting in rhymes and rhythms. Later, in my later poems, I used more rhythms, less prose. I wrote less prose poems because you see, maybe when one becomes old, he needs some props to hold their ideas which are not so new, you see. So to make it lively, one needs more music, more rhythm, which I didn't need when I was young, when I wrote Joto Durei Jai. But now I use more rhythms. And almost I would love to write songs instead of poetry. বন্টি বাপ গিয়েছে স্বর্গে, দাদার লাশ মর্গে, ভালো চাষ তো যাই বেলা, ধর্গে ওই অমুককে, কি করে যায় আজ্ঞা, ওরই খেতে বর্গা, ধর্ণা দেবার একটাই জায়গা, বড় পীরের দরকার। স্কুলের মাঠে সারি সারি গোঁ গোঁ করে কালো গাড়ি, ওই অমুকের বাড়ি থেকে যায় বড় বড় চাঙাড়ি। বলে লাভ নেই মোড়লকে, বোবা কালা হলে মেলে, উঁচু মহলে কলকে। আসলে বোন দেখ কার ধন, করে রেখেছে দখলকে। কিড়িং কিড়িং সাইকেলের ঘন্টি, পিঠে বন্দুক গলায় কণ্ঠি, ঝোপের মধ্যে জলদি জলদি গা ঢাকা দে বন্টি। আমার আছে লঙ্কার গুঁড়ো, তোর রয়েছে সরকি, আমাদের ভয় ডর কি।
A poet both of concrete imagery as well as abstract thought that has come to be the mainstay of his recent poetry, Subhash, a people's poet and probably the most controversial literary figure in modern Bengali literature, celebrates Calcutta in all its manifestations, through sounds, images, snapshots. It is the city that has inspired him all along. In a rare confession, he admits that he has never been able to write anything tangible outside Calcutta. It has been said somewhere, poetry for Subhas Mukhopadhyay is not a mere tool to help perceive life, but a means to help create life. Poetry is precious, but life is infinitely more precious.
I always loved crowd. To write poems, I need to roam about on the streets for days together. Then something comes. I hardly wrote anything outside Calcutta. And my first poem, Chin 1938, was published. I can be alone in a crowd. And when I write, you see, people around me, they sit and talk. But you see, if they don't disturb me, you see, I can't join with them in their talks. But when they talk, it doesn't matter. I'm used to noise, crowd. And I used to study in this room when my father's friends used to come here because we didn't have any other place. So in one corner I had to study. Chin 1938 জাপ পুষ্পকে ঝরে ফুলঝুরি জলে হ্যাংকাও, কমরেড আজ বজ্রে কঠিন বন্ধুতা চাও, লাল নিশানের নিচে উল্লাসী মুক্তির ডাক, রাইফেল আজ শত্রুপাতের সম্মান পাক, মেরুদণ্ডের কাছে ঈপ্সিত খাড়া ইস্পাত, বোম বেটেদের টুটি যেন পায় জিঘাংশু হাত, বীর্যবানের বিজয়ের পথে খোলা সব লোক, দিকে দিকে সেন দৃষ্টিকে দেখো মেলে সাধুবক। দিশাহীন ঝড়ে জানি তুমি যুগ বিপ্লবী মেঘ, তড়িৎ কাটুক তোমাদের দ্রুত চলবার বেগ। উজ্জ্বল ইতিহাসে নিষ্ফল পশ্চাৎ শোক, লোকান্তরেই নেবুলার সাথে সন্ধিটা হোক। প্রান্তিক লোভে পরজীবীদের নিষ্ঠুর চোখ, প্রাক পুরাণিক গুহাকে ডাকল ক্ষুরোধার নোক। কমরেড অশ্বের খুঁড়ে আনো লাল দিন, দম্পতি রাত ততদিন হোক উৎসবহীন। দুর্ঘটনার সম্ভাবনাকে বাঁধবে না কেউ, ফসলের এই পাকা বুকে আহা বন্যার ঢেউ। দস্যুর স্রোত বাঁধবার আগে সংহতি চাই, জাপ পুষ্পকে জলে ক্যান্টন জলে সাংহাই। From mid-50s there was a change from abstract to concrete, from regular rhythm to rhythmic prose. And you see, I had more images than declarations, abstract declarations, more symbols. So that way it became different from my earlier writings, which was more oriented to forms and word juggleries. It became, my language became very simple.
In the autumn of his life, with umpteen laurels behind him, Subhas Mukhopadhyay seems to have become oblivious of the achievements carelessly dumped into his shoulder bag, along with other accessories. He wears the poet laureate crown with the casualness of an uncaring vagabond. When not working, Subhash discards his intellectual skin and effortlessly transforms himself into the form of any other ordinary mortal to whom the small pleasures of everyday living with the family are equally stimulating. With no family of their own, Subhash and his wife Geeta have made adopting orphaned girls, rearing them, marrying them off, an enriching routine. But adoption is an expression the family never spells out in words. Yesterday's angry man spitting out venom is today's much adored senior citizen. Full of powerful reminiscences, ideas about life, and the very purpose of birth and rebirth, Subhas Mukhopadhyay looks back on his journey now not with anger but with compassion.
I'm not only a poet, I'm also a prose writer. Because, you see, I write serious prose, and I don't express myself only in poetry, but also in prose. When man becomes old, he feels that he should share his experiences with others, which is not possible in verses. One has to write prose. That is how I started writing autobiographical things. But you can't say these as autobiographic because I don't have any notes. I have a very bad memory about names and years. I like it, I write it like a sort of a fiction, you see, basing on my experiences. I don't go out of that. Before I became a communist, I was a believer. But God was not in my perception, you see. And now I don't think of God. My mind is open, you see. That is why I am not atheist. But I don't believe in God. I rather call myself agnostic. I'm not interested in knowing God. I respect and regard the believers very much, more than those who do not believe. You see, because they have some moral values which are very good for the society. But I have seen people, atheists also, without any scruples or any fear of God or that sort of thing, and I didn't like them. এক অসহ্য রাত্রি, কি এক গভীর চিন্তায় কপাল কুঁচকে আছে চড়িয়ালের রাস্তায়। একবার এ আলোর নিচে, একবার ও আলোর নিচে, গাছের পাতায় বারবার নড়ে চড়ে বসছে ধৈর্যচ্যুত অন্ধকার। কসাইখানার বন্ধ ঝাঁপ পাহারা দিচ্ছে চর্বিতে ফেটে পড়া একাল সেঁড়ে হিংসুটে কুকুর। পেট্রোল পাম্পের গায়ে গা দেওয়া খোলার বাড়িটা আজ সন্ধে থেকেই নিশুতি। দাওয়ার ওপর সারি সারি বিড়ির আগুনে জ্বলছে না রক্তহীন কাজল টানা ক্ষুধার্ত চোখ। অষ্টপ্রহর হরিনাম করা পাখির খাঁচাটা একা এক কোণে দুলছে। সাঁকোটার কাছেই কাল রাত্রে যেখানে একটা লোক খুন হয়ে গেছে, সেখানে দিনকে রাত করতে পারা এক উদ্ধৃপরা পুলিশ প্রাণপণের লাঠিতে মুখ গুঁজে বৃথাই চাইছে রাতটাকে দিন করতে। রাস্তার দুপাশারি বস্তি থেকে মাঝে মাঝে ভেসে আসছে দম ফাটা আওয়াজ। জটের অদৃশ্য ফেঁসোগুলো বুকের গহ্বরে দড়ি পাকিয়ে বুঝি হৃৎপিণ্ডগুলোকে বিষম জোরে টানছে।